So I'd like to introduce Secretary Hoffman, who is our keynote speaker. One of the things that we've tried to do with our academy graduations is invite somebody with statewide responsibility. We've had the Chief Justice, the Governor, so on and so forth. Secretary Hoffman was the former Commissioner of the Department of Corrections for about 4 years and has taken on the role of the Secretary. Rob was appointed to the Secretary in November of 2008. At the time that I became the commissioner. I should know that date a little better than I suspect. Rob has a unique experience in that he served in my capacity for 4 years and knows the complications of what it is that we deal with, and so takes a unique view to the role of the Secretary of Human Services. Anyway, our Secretary and our friend, Rob Hoffman.
Thank you, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. I think one of the pluses for us, Andy referenced the move of the Academy, but without doubt, one of the pluses for us is the opportunity to have more contact with the incoming class and to, make virtually every graduation. So this is a pleasure. So it's good to be back with you, graduates, today, with your families. I always love when I hear kids in the audience. I kind of long for the days when I had somebody that was squawking in the back of the room. I also want to acknowledge the Academy staff. I think one of the most important things we do as managers is who we hire and then the ongoing mentoring. But the selection of the new staff is sort of the new blood into the body of corrections, bring a new family member in. So I think both the selection by the superintendents in the audience and the instruction by the correctional staff is tremendously important. So I thank the staff and also the people that have helped. I see in the audience some of the folks that also did the training at the Academy, and I appreciate their help. It's a pleasure to see our honor guard here as well, and the rest of our DOC colleagues. I do continue to have an amazingly warm spot in my heart for the folks in corrections. Before I go any further, I don't think we can talk about it enough, but to reflect for a moment on the 8th anniversary of the terrorist attacks of 9/11. Like Andy, I grew up in the New York area, so I had classmates that were killed in the World Trade Center, and that image, just as Dana said, is forever etched, seared in my memory. For a better part of 5 years, when I started my career, I walked as close either through the World Trade Center or as close as we are to each other right here, and I think it's easy for us as Vermonters to be detached from that tremendous horror and the emptiness of thousands of families that somebody went to work one morning and didn't come back, and people didn't have a chance to say goodbye to their loved ones. So I think it's fitting that we remember the thousands of victims, and in particular the hundreds of New York City firefighters and dozens of New York City policemen that didn't come back as well. And elected to go into those buildings. It wasn't like they were stuck in those buildings. And as our fellow Vermonters prepare for a mission overseas to Afghanistan, I think it's also appropriate that Dana and the rest of us reflect and remember them and their families at this difficult time. I think it's easy, and I've said this, I met last week with General Dubey to brief him on the issue that Andy raised, and we're going to be meeting the governor, and he and Andy, are going to be meeting in a few weeks' time to see what we can do to support our neighbors and our coworkers that are going overseas. The one thing I've said to the leadership of the Guard is I think it's so important now, as maybe the country gets fatigued with the 8 years of war, that we remember that the contributions are being shouldered by very, very few families. I mean, most of us go about our daily life, and some of us are serving their country so far from home, and I think it's easy to forget, and we shouldn't forget, and I'm glad that the centerpiece of today's recognition and the centerpiece of your graduation is acknowledgement of that tragic event 8 years ago, and also an expression of thanks to our coworkers that have served and are about to serve overseas. There's an obvious linkage between those events of 8 8 years ago, the service of our National Guard and military, and your new profession, and that's service. The firefighters and police officers at the World Trade Center, while everyone was fleeing, like your classmate, out of that building, they were marching into that burning building, and hundreds of them did not come out of that. And in the same way that the National Guard serves, you have an opportunity